Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Ironic Follow the World. We're your hosts and surrogate fathers, Juan and Ben. Today, we'll be discussing Are you and your spouse aligned?
We did a previous episode. Do you and your wife share the same goals? And that's where we discussed saying what it is you want to your spouse honestly, and you two working together get on the same page. This episode is a little different because it's saying, are you and your spouse in alignment? If you as a man, Juan, make a decision, will your wonderful wife stand behind you on that decision, or is she going to constantly second guess you and throw you under the bus the first chance she gets to undermine you?
And caveat, just because you're in alignment doesn't mean there's not going to be any second guessing. There's still second guessing. But if you can actually convey the reasoning why you're doing this, she's going to come in alignment. I've had that experience.
And vice versa. If your wife makes a decision, stands up to somebody in public or something like that, are you going to tell her to be quiet and stop and throw her under the bus right there in front of everyone? Or are you going to say, at the very least, nothing, even if she's wrong, and then correct her and discuss with her later? You know, are you publicly in support with your spouse? I guess is more of what we're trying to say here. Are you openly aligned? Or are you just waiting for the moment where you just stick it in them? You know, that's the.
And just to give everybody the right answer, guys out there, you stand with her and agree with her,
Absolutely.
even if it's the wrong thing, and then you privately correct and be like, look, we're going to do it because you said we're going to do it, but what you said was completely wrong, and you don't need to say that ever again.
But that leads into greater growth in the marriage in itself. But you said everything you just said, I wholeheartedly agree with.
Because that's happened. But then it's like, okay, I'm not going to, because that can be very, very much.
And to turn their tables, I've said stuff where my wife's like, that wasn't right. And sure, we'll go along with it this time, but next time, we need to have a family discussion before you run your mouth about this, that, and the other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like my wife and I, we've had conversations about that. Like when we've had you guys over, and then she finds out what we're doing because I've had a discussion with you in front of her. She's like, "Oh, I didn't realize we were doing that." It's like, "Oh yeah, guess I need to talk to you about it."
Yes.
Luckily, it hasn't been anything too major, but it can be.
It can be.
So, anyways, man, let's go into a little bit more detail, a little bit more nitty gritty with this in alignment. I think there's some things going on in the world, obviously, that I just be right up front. The marriage is being attacked right now. Like marriages, the family unit, it's being attacked, and being in alignment, being in unity, you and your spouse is going to be more and more important, more crucial as we go forward in time and in what's going on in the world. Because I think, it's just, in a way, I feel like we're being attacked. I don't know if you gathered that or you felt that lately, but
In
that's how I
the
feel.
past couple of years, before your marriage was only attacked by your own designs ultimately. Maybe an addiction, maybe a love of something other than your spouse. But at least in America, there was never an external force putting so much pressure on you that you couldn't just walk away and say, no big deal. I'll just go do something else and be fine. But now in the past 2 years, we've had everything that has happened with the
Juju bug.
lockdowns, the juju bugs, the hoodoo's been put on us.
Yeah.
and a lot of marriages have been tested. There's, lockdowns for a year straight. People who are going to work for 10 hours a day are now locked in their house together, where their kids were going to school for 10 hours a day. Now they're locked in the house together. And the only access you have to the outside world for some people really was just whatever you could garner from the internet or TV. And now although the lockdowns have ended for the most part in most places, you know, when you go out, there was a lot of mandates, a lot of rules that weren't there before. And these are trying things on a marriage. Like, unfortunately, the marriage has been tested. And, relationships I agree with you. I think the marriage really is under fire in some regard. And now there's been a mandate for all federal employees, but people don't realize a lot of companies hold federal contracts. A mandate to get the vaccine. And this isn't going to argue whether or not the vaccine's a right or a wrong choice. The issue is there is one man telling me that you cannot provide for your family unless you get this shot. You are not allowed to work. You're not allowed to eat at this place unless you do this thing. And it's just one man making a mandate. It's not a bunch of people you elected to represent you making a law. It is one man's decision. And I love my country. I'm a proud American. I really am. But I fear my government right now. I really do. And America fought a war and became independent because hundreds of years ago, there was one man telling a whole group of people what to do. And they didn't like it. And I love the American spirit. Bill Nye, the science guy, he said America's greatest export is our culture. And American spirit is a culture in itself. Just that you go out there and be what you want to be. You have the freedoms. And right now it bothers me, but it's testing my marriage additionally. And my wife and I are wholeheartedly on this train of we disagree with this completely. And my wife's amazing. Y'all just don't know. If you come and try and take her from me, I will whip you. I don't care how big you are.
And I will help him.
but she just stood next to me and said, at some point we have to stand for our country. At some point we have to stand for what we believe in. This is a tipping point because it's this now, but in 3 months it's something else. In a year it's something else. At what point are you just going to have to do whatever someone says just to eat and exist? And we're not trying to make a great big political statement, but we've been put in a place to where our marriages are being tested right now. Our freedoms are being tried. And I'm just in a group with my wife in alignment in our marriage where, okay, I can suffer. I've put a few acorns away in the tree and I can handle a cold winter. I've got a little money. I'll be all right. And my wife stood by me and was like, I agree with you. We're not doing this. We might have to move into a small shack of a house and rent and just live in squalor. She's like, but my goodness, we're not letting them take our spirit. We're not letting them take our dignity like this. This is not happening. And I know some people make the argument, well, it's just a shot, just get it. It's like, no. No. What it is my freedoms. It's my spirit. You're trying to take my ability to provide for my family.
You said a point that America, well, Bill Nye, the science guy, what he said, that America's greatest export is culture. And it made me think about how true that is. And for the longest time, the American man has been seen as this pioneer, this rough guy, this tough guy who is willing to go out west and search for gold. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. He's the guy who's like, hey, there's bears out there. There's lions out there. Like, oh, whatever. We'll just eat them. I don't care.
They're not going to eat me. I'm going to eat them.
We had the John Wayne view of the man. Like, he's like, hey, this tough guy out in the frontiers, man, just willing to take it. But it's changing now. The culture is changing. And you were saying what you were saying, Ben, I kept on this thought coming through my mind. Strong men create good times. Weak men create hard times. And I think that's what's happening right now. We're being tested. Are you going to be a strong man and create good times, or are you going to be a weak man and create hard times? Because it is just a shot, but is it? And I'm sorry, and let's go back to going back to the main subject of this podcast, because we're talking about being in alignment with your spouse. Because I know there's a lot of marriages out there that may be in complete disagreement, where your spouse may be saying, "Hey, just do it, just give in." It's like, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? But what is the big deal? You just give up a little bit of your freedom. You give up a little bit of your responsibility. The less responsibility you have, the less control you have.
That's it.
The more you're dependent on somebody else providing for your kids, the more you're dependent on somebody else providing from your family. And we did that episode about being an alpha male or a beta male. Though, I'm sorry, some people may get offended by this, but the American man is turning into a beta male. And one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast is because we know that there's men out there who have that desire, that calling in their heart. There's something deep inside of you saying, "Hey, this is wrong. I don't want to live like this. I want to be an alpha male. I want to be the provider for my family. I want to be the one that says, hey, I will clear the path." And we're, in a way, your wife is looking for that as well. She's looking at you and she's saying, "Why don't you be that? Clear the path for our family. Be that. We will follow you if you're willing to go into the wilderness. But if you're willing to go into complacency, you know what? They're going to follow you as well." And there's a good look.
You're getting all warm and tingly.
You got the warms and tinglies right there.
Hair standing up on her neck. Woo! Feeling it, boys. It's good.
And I will say this too. As far as America is still the best country out there.
Absolutely.
There's no place that I would rather be in. I was born in Mexico, raised here in the States. I have absolutely no desire to live anywhere else. We need a strong country, but in order for us to have a strong country, we need strong men. And for strong men, we have to have alignment in our family units. Your spouse has to be aligned with you. Because I experienced the same thing with my wife and I. We've made up our minds as far as what we're going to do. And in my household, I've determined I'm the provider for my household. I'm not going to depend on another man. If we go through hard times, you know what? It's going to be okay because I'm willing to take on that challenge in order to be able to provide good times for my family.
But think about going through a hard time. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, you get scared. Believe it or not, people still get scared, but the choices they make to that fear. And I think about it as, look at a soldier who's been to war. Nobody looks at a soldier who's been to war and be like, "Oh, he's weak." They're like, "Oh man, that guy, he's a veteran of such and such war," or "She's a veteran of such and such war." That's a tough person, right? Don't mess with him. He went over to whatever country or wherever and did this battle. Like, you admire them, because they came out on the other side. Yeah, sometimes people may fall, but all those guys who came back, they don't let their memory go. They honor them. They're like, "Yeah, so-and-so fell next to me, but he's always with me," or "She's always with me." And they just, you meet so many people who World War II soldiers who are still talking about their buddies they lost, and they honor them. And I mean, that's amazing to me. And there's an ancient proverb, I think it's a Chinese proverb that I heard, and it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Have you heard that one before?
No, man, that's good though. I like that.
I have to give. I heard it on a
Was
clip
that a
from
fortune
Joe
cookie?
Rogan. No, Joe Rogan said it.
Oh. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Shout out to you.
But it was such a powerful statement to make. It's you need to stand up. You need to be tough. You need to endure. If you feel like something's wrong right now, find a way to stand up and fight it, and stand for what you believe in. You might not even know where to fight, but if you think something's wrong, go, I don't like this and I want to change. And start contacting representatives of your state or whoever. Start telling your friends, if nothing else. Start telling your family. Get out there and make some noise. And you may think your little voice doesn't matter, but I'm telling you right now, your little voice will make a difference. It might have to go with 1,000 or 1,000,000 other little voices, but if 1,000,000 little voices start saying the same thing, that gets loud real quick.
And even with that, if you're like, oh man, I'm not there. Start at your household. Stand up for what you believe in your
Yes.
household, and you and your spouse get in alignment
Yes.
as far as what you believe. If you're the man of the household and you're saying like, well, my wife is not agreeing with you, explain to her, talk to her, tell her this is why I'm doing this. This is what I believe. This is the decision I'm making. And because I'm telling you, I've seen it, man. I've seen it, and it breaks my heart to see divided families over topics. And it could be anything. It could be politics. It's sport. Heck, we live in Alabama. Okay, if you're an Alabama fan, and then you're what's the other team? Auburn. We've seen families get divided over that.
There are flags literally in front of people's houses that say a house divided, and half the flag says Auburn and half the flag says Alabama.
And I know there's a saying out there, a house divided cannot stand.
Correct.
And going forward, there has to be unity. And there has to be unity in your household. You and your spouse have to be in alignment based on the decisions that they're coming before us. This is where we're standing. This is our line in the sand.
That's it. If nothing else.
Once you cross it, it's really hard to go back.
It is. We want to thank you all for listening to A Mexican and a Redneck Father of the World. We love you and we're proud of you.